Hi, everyone. So today I'm presenting a project for my Political Science 126 International Law and Organizations class. I spent some time researching insecure land rights and their threat to global development. I looked into how intergovernmental organizations and non-governmental organizations have targeted this issue, and today I will be sharing with you the culmination of my research as displayed on this Padlet. So I'm going to scroll down really quick so you can get a glimpse of all the resources that I used to pull from and kind of draw conclusions from. So to begin, when property rights are unclear, insecurity over the land becomes another risk that small farmers across the globe have to deal with. Insecure land rights are a global problem because as countries develop, states and investors that typically have a lot of power and influence begin to look to acquire land, leaving communities vulnerable to losing access to critical resources. So you can kind of see how such a power imbalance contributes to inequalities because without proper documentation that articulates ownership, um, their land can be seized, leaving them with no source of income, in some cases, no place to live. Land rights are a necessary condition for rural development. As food production increases and the agricultural sector of these developing countries grows, land tenure in each country needs to adapt and allow for ownership of the land. When individuals have secure land rights, they're more likely to invest in their land and maximize the production of um, farm farmable land without abusing it. They have an interest in caring for the land and they don't deplete it with poor farming practices. So I listed a few intergovernmental organizations such as the World Bank here and the United Nations Office or High Commission on Human Rights. And they kind of work to create public awareness and support campaigns that advocate for land rights. They added to their agenda to implement policies that protect land rights. One particular NGO that I found to be innovating in its approach is Land Matrix. That is found right here. You can visit their website and learn more about how they focus on gathering global data on land ownership, land deals, and trades to promote transparency. So their database was launched in 2012 with the goal of collecting data on agriculture investments around the world. They have extensive data on land transactions in over 100 countries, including the intention to purchase land, failed attempts to purchase land, and completed transactions and expired contracts. So they attempt to make their data accessible not only to governments and investors, but to marginalized individuals such as small rural farmers and women. Another trend that I came across as I was researching is that there are gender disparities. So there are other NGOs such as Landesa and Land Coalition. Sure, right here, Landesa and Land Coalition. They focus on extending land rights to women. They acknowledge that land rights in some countries can be discriminatory and exclude women, and this threatens their economic mobility. When women don't have land titles, when women don't have titles to their land, they're at risk of losing the land that feeds them, and they're deprived of an opportunity to create wealth, and this kind of just contributes to cycles of poverty. So there's an overall lack of international law and a weak enforcement of land rights. With the exception of indigenous land rights, there's no actual treaties that explicitly address this issue. The UN has stated that it's a human rights issue, which is kind of why the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is commonly cited, along with this treaty right here, the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. However, there is an urge for international law to address this issue with hard law and kind of explicitly say that land rights are protected. So a general takeaway is that it is critical for the general public to understand the role that land rights play in economic development. It's also important to acknowledge that there are inequalities in countries where women do not have the same access to land rights as their male counterparts. As an audience, we can support organizations that advocate for legislation that favors land reform.